What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the set of the Business
Temple.
Temple. As you know, we are live here in New York City. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for staying consistent with us. We do this every single Saturday, 12 p.m. ET, live here on YouTube. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification button for topics on ancient philosophy on the union with modern business. So here we are now. I am with Super Ray.
And I'm with Super Alex, co-hosting here at the Business Temple. Just like he said, make sure to catch our shows every Saturday at 12 o'clock. Like and subscribe. And we're here to show you the way of business, mixing philosophy and business. So get ready. We have not a really philosophical episode today. It's a more on-topic episode where people start talking about this more and more about the differences in the work-life balance, and it comes to working remotely and working in the office. So today's show is all about
it's a hot topic right now, actually, and so we want to talk about the future of work, navigating tomorrow's workplace. And of course, before we do that, we want to hype everybody up. It is the weekend, so make sure that you're always starting out right with us. Wish you a great weekend, making sure that we're here to just bring you that daily dose, or not daily, but weekly dose of motivation, inspiration to help with your personal development in your entrepreneurial journey. Now, this is a hot topic. Super Ray actually brought it up to me as we were thinking about what topic we were going to talk about. And there's just a lot of stuff going on in the workplace. And, it can look uncertain for some, but that's what we're here for. We're here to clarify a few things, making sure that you are aware of what tomorrow looks like in your workplace. And there's a lot to talk about. So let's get it on, Super Ray.
Let's get it.
All right. So I know we're going to talk about a couple of things today, and to summarize it for everybody, what we want to talk about is AI, data-driven HR, how Gen Z shapes workplace culture, and a lot more. So where to start?
Wow. I say we start from the beginning, meaning how did we traditionally do things in the workplace? Meaning what was the expected employer situation, I would say, where you're expected to come into the workplace, you're expected to come in on time, you're expected to be dressed up, and these expectations are sort of what makes the workplace the workplace. A lot of people would argue that this kind of fosters that union of work culture if you have people in the office and working together for a common purpose. On the other hand, with COVID changing the landscape of work, now we have individuals that have been working all over the country for companies that even here in the US, companies outside of the US, and they find it that it's better to work remotely because now your pool of talent has now gotten bigger. Notably, competition has gotten bigger, and I mean that comes with its whole host of
it becomes a global workforce now too. Global competition, global workforce. It's easier to create a global presence now with the impact of the pandemic and remote work. However, Ray and I were just talking about this earlier. There are people out there who prefer remote work, and there are people out there who prefer working in the office.
Absolutely.
So where do you stand?
I am for working remotely. And the reason being because it does offer that flexibility. It does offer a chance for more people to be part of something that they necessarily might have never been part of or had access to before.
Okay.
And I think it does open up a world and a talent pool that is much more beneficial to the company than if you just have this siloed place. Because if you think about it, why would you fish from one resource or one pool or one area if you can pretty much source from the entire world? I think remote work is the future of work, and the outdated notion that people need to come into the office to work it is what it is. I think it's outdated. I find it that some of the companies that do want to implement or enforce a lot of these rules that perhaps want to adopt a hybrid workforce is because of control. That's what it is. It's all about
Okay.
The illusion of control, I would say. I would call it that.
Speaking on the real Super Ray. But no, I absolutely. Well, I agree and I disagree.
Okay.
So I agree that remote work is the future. Remote work is here to stay. That's it. A lot of people are trying to go against that tide that no, we're trying to go back to the way things were. But that's the thing. Things will not go back to the way things were. And so you just got to pivot. I do agree that that remote work is the future. However, I prefer a more hybrid setup. I like going to the office, but at the same time, I also like going, working from home. So I think having that option, not being required to go to the office, not being required to work from home, just having options, I think is a more sustainable thing moving forward.
I see.
Because, for example, an easy argument for that would be, I don't want to work from home because there's too much distractions, or I don't want to work in the office because there's too much distractions.
Yeah, and let's talk more about the productivity side. Do you think that people produce more or give more of themselves if they're in an office versus working remotely?
There's a lot of nuance to that, and it could be difficult to answer, which is why I won't give it a blatant yes or no. But think about it this way. Say you're a single parent and you are a father of two kids and you're working from home and it's crazy at home. You know what I mean? Wouldn't that affect your productivity levels as opposed to going to the office? And in another scenario as well, I would say I work from home a lot, and it's hard for me to put boundaries in my work because the laptop is so easily accessible at home. It could be after work hours, and then say I get an email, I might be prompted to check that, even though I'm at home, because it's just so accessible to me.
I would say there's a secret of doing it, and then the way I try to work from home and do it successfully is to have an isolated space where it's specific to that task. The same way that in how you build habits, you have to set a station that is specifically for work. When you sit down, it's time for work. You are focused because your environment does really shape the way that you produce. If your environment is chaotic, to your point, if you have kids, if you have a lot of distraction and it's chaotic, that is not conducive to growth. And I understand that having an office is preferable to working from home because of those distractions. And the output you provide, it's still noticeable. It's not like you're producing less if you're working from home versus the office, is what my thought process is, because it's not hard to now see that. I believe that communication actually has gotten better with remote work because not everything now everything is on paper, everything is on video, everything can get recorded. You could always go back and review any meetings that you've missed or meetings that you can't attend. There's more of an acceptable notion of having everything just available to you. And when you're in person, a lot of things can get lost in translations. Those in-person meetings that you've been to, how many times have you maybe misunderstood or not understood what the KPIs or what? And
you look at the meeting notes like, this doesn't make sense.
This is not what was requested. This is not what was asked. But now it's like you have full proof. If it's recorded, you can have notes, and it's more acceptable to just email the person that you were speaking to back and forth, and it's fine. Back then, it's just like it's open to interpretation, I would say.
I would agree. And another interesting thing that Super Ray and I had discussed prior to the show is how Gen Z shapes and impacts the work culture this time. So you did mention that you spoke with somebody during one of your Table Topics Tuesdays who was a Gen Zer, and you were recently just graduated and have never actually worked in an office.
Yeah. And
so tell us about that.
This is the reality. And this is really interesting because speaking to a Gen Zer that is just going into the workforce, he wants to have that experience. He wants to go into an office and have that experience that us older generation or people that have had access to the office, we have something to compare it with. They don't. They will never experience that because now we're living in a world where, of course, all the jobs are mostly hybrid or online. And that's the reality. It's really strange because coming from a Gen Z person, and then the notion is that Gen Z doesn't want to work. That is not true. They do want to work. It's just providing them with opportunities to give them the work that they want to do. What's funny is that he did eventually end up finding a job, but that job was all remote, and he actually prefers working remotely, which is so weird. But that's the
thing, though. How could you prefer to remotely if you hadn't had the opportunity to experience, the other side of it?
You're neglecting his ability to grow that social skill, because working in an office does provide those social skills and working with a variety of people. But now that I mean, even though I'm thinking about it, you are opening yourself to a world that you are working with more cultures and diverse people than ever before if you are doing it online. But if you're in the office, I guess that interpersonal connection is what's missing. And a lot of the older generations understand that. And then they understand that in order to build a good culture, you do have to have that. And then the Gen Zers, and like how he expressed was that he's never going to have that ability to do that.
But as I mentioned earlier, I think hybrid really would be an answer to that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And speaking of people applying for jobs, a hot topic that I want to discuss here, I'm not super familiar with, but apparently Super Ray is data-driven HR. Yeah. So it apparently it's a AI, somewhat AI recruiting software system that I'm not sure exactly what it's called or anything like that.
I gave you some notes on that, Alex. I mean, bottom line is I'll be just quick with this one. It is impossible to screen that many candidates for these bigger companies, so they use AI algorithms to screen the resumes of people, and in doing so, they take the collective pool of their already existing workforce and model that AI system out of the workforce. What ends up happening is that if that workforce is full of, let's say, white males that have always been in this company, then the algorithm will be biased towards finding males with that name. So you're now discriminating against women, you're discriminating people of color with different names that may not match well with the particular job posting, because it doesn't blend or doesn't make sense, because this candidate right away is eliminated through that filtering system. And AI, I feel like, does have a place in HR and in hiring, but understanding
not in that way.
Not in that way. You have to understand that AI is always going to have biases because of the data that you input into it. And if you're inputting data from your existing workforce that's already not as diverse or as it should be, or if you're looking to meet certain expectations or find a diverse workforce, to be honest, which is much more beneficial, then you're automatically removing yourself from accessing that talent pool, that talent pool that might be a great fit, but is not a great fit to the AI.
Right. And it's the names are just one part of the nuance. You know what I mean? There's a lot more keywords out there that these recruiting software will attempt to look for as you pass your resume or CV along. And if you don't have a lot of those keywords in your resume, then chances are you're not going to get a call back.
That's true.
And let's talk about, though, one way to hack that system that we were just talking about prior to the show is when you could actually, as you're building your resume or CV, tailor fitting it for a certain company or a certain job position that you're applying for example, sales. Yeah. Obviously, you're going to want a lot of buzzwords there, like business development, customer experience, trends, analytics, and all that stuff that you got to put on your resume. For the software to recognize it, you could actually head over to ChatGPT and then, have that AI develop the proper summaries, descriptions with the right keywords for you, so the recruiting software will recognize it.
Absolutely. So there you go. That's a life hack tip for you all.
It's AI hacking AI. Isn't that so odd? Yeah. But that is the reality of tomorrow's workplace. That we didn't have. I never worked with AI before, but now that I realize there's just so much new things that are going on, it's just something that I feel AI is necessary. I use AI in my job.
Absolutely.
So I'm not sure how often you use it.
I use it pretty substantially, I would say, just because if we don't learn how to use it, then we're going to be left behind. Because think about it, in school, when the calculator came out, and this is a great description that I heard, it changed math forever.
Yeah.
Math got harder. So your work is going to get harder now that AI exists. So if you either learn how to use AI now or get left behind, because we're out here using calculators while you're still dividing with your fingers.
Yeah. You just got to keep pivoting.
Yeah.
You know, and I like what you said about people who use AI. I think there's an important message there where people actually talk about, oh, AI is going to replace me. No, AI is not going to replace you. Someone who knows how to use AI is going to replace you.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So just learn how to use it, whatever you need to do to learn how to use it, because like remote work, AI is here to stay, and it's only going to evolve too, because I don't know if a lot of you have actually been looking into this, and I think it's important for us to get into it as well. We talked about it briefly in another episode, but it's about augmented reality, virtual reality, and the metaverse. Eventually, that's what it's going to end up to. You know, we're all going to be in our own little video game.
I don't know about that.
Wearing that, you know what I mean?
I don't know about all that.
But where are you at with it? Are you in agreement?
No, I want to hear your point of view, actually, Alex. What do you think about like AI and VR and the future of work when it comes to using these tools? I would say for work.
So to me, it doesn't matter what I think, if I agree with it or not, because I know the world is constantly moving and constantly changing. That change will happen whether I like it or not. So I think the real question is, how can we adapt to it? How can we pivot to it? You know, regardless of what our opinion is about it, because it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
I don't think so.
What, metaverse?
I don't think so, because we as humans are more convenience driven. It is inconvenient to put something in your face and start working with something on your face. I personally, I'm gonna make this notion. I think I've said it before. It's not gonna work. I don't think it's gonna work. I think it's more gimmicky. I think it's a gimmick, to be honest. I think that the future of work isn't as playful as people may seem. AR and VR are great assets to have if you are developing a game, if you're developing something that's more interactive. But to sit down and do a PowerPoint or do slides, it's difficult when you're staring at a cartoon character of yourself. It's very distracting.
Avatar.
It's not great. And the people that have tested it out, and I mean, I beta tested a lot of it. I had an Oculus, which I tried. I tried the Horizon.
Yeah.
I tried Horizons, and this is coming from a place where the interactions there are just not as well developed, or it's not convenient to have something there. With Apple coming out with their new device, like the Apple Vision Pro, it's supposed to like merge the two, virtual reality and AR, to be more seamless, and like you can see the virtual eyes and whatever. But I don't know how far that's going to go. Is it going to sell out? Absolutely. People are going to just buy this thing like crazy. If you remember Google Glass, people bought that thing out, and where is it now? In the dumpster.
It's gone.
And it's because it's not practical. You need something practical and convenient for people to use it. And if it's not practical for someone to sit there hours on end and use for something other than entertainment, because that's what it is. To me, it's an entertainment device. It has uses in that space, and gaming, and as well as entertainment. But when it comes to actual productivity and work, I don't see it.
So building off of that, where would you like to see it go then? The metaverse. What changes would you like to be implemented so that it could work?
I just like to see better games.
But in terms of workplace stuff, no.
Nothing. I don't see it.
I think so. If we are gonna relate it to the workplace, you're right. It could be it's a form of entertainment. It could be a form of team building. I think that would be a great way to use the metaverse. It could be a form of interactive use in corporate training as well. I'm not entirely sure how they're gonna change the entire workplace
Hey, you're the one that's for it.
to meta. I am for it. I am for it. It's just that I can't really see how that's going to be done right now. But I am for the metaverse. I am totally for the metaverse, man. You know, and just to see that form of evolution in work, it's just I enable that. You know, and another thing that I want to bring up that has been coming up in terms of how companies operate, and I actually have tried this before, is that a lot of companies now use co-working spaces to operate too. I think co-working space is a brilliant freaking idea. You know, I'm surprised that we had just recently, you know, have gotten that out in the business landscape today. So
You're a frequent user of co-working spaces.
Yes.
Have you, like, we could tell the audience right now, if you do need a space for an office, so if you do need that escape from your home and you don't have the space for it, but you might have the money for it, go use a co-working space. You could tell them a little bit about your experience.
So I first started out an entrepreneur. I had my proof of concept. I had my own office. I was paying tons of money for it, but not getting enough money back in before, and it was just not sustainable for me, especially as a startup entrepreneur. So startup entrepreneurs out there, listen up, please. You do have an option to still have that you know, presence of having an office and getting all the access that an office has, projectors, printers, all that important stuff, but still be able to save your money and not having to, you know, pay rent every single month. And the answer to that is a co-working space. So there's a lot of co-working spaces out there. You could just quickly Google them, and a lot of it will come up, most especially in your area. Now, one of the benefits that I've had with a co-working space, not only does it give your business, your startup, a very distinguished look because you do have an office, but the customization opportunities of a co-working space as well. So co-working spaces do offer customization such as, oh, outside or by the reception, you could have a tarpaulin of your logo or your services, or you could have a cubicle with your own branding and brand colors in it. So I feel like that's very important for you to be able to tailor fit your, you know, your co-work space. And not only that, one of my most favorite things about co-working spaces is that the networking opportunities, because there's a lot of companies and freelancers, entrepreneurs as well, that do go to co-working spaces all the time, and it's an office space with a networking opportunity in and of itself. So that is one of my favorite things about it. It does not cost much monthly. There is an annual plan, a 6-month plan. I like to be on the go, pay whatever I need to pay monthly, and then have the option to exit if I need to. There's no complicated contracts to it or anything like that. Even now, some co-working spaces have actually pivoted and added stuff to their services in such a way where, you know what, you're a startup entrepreneur, let us take care of your business licenses, let us register all of that for you, you know. And some companies have actually really kind of like let go of the whole office thing and just straight up move to a co-working space. So that, I feel like that's one of the best things that has happened in the workplace revolution right now. So I'm not sure. Do you use co-working spaces often?
I've never really needed to,
because you have a space at home.
I do have a space at home, and then I can go to the office when I do have the option. That I do like the fact that we do have the option. Sometimes we do our show at my office, so
That's right.
It's pretty convenient. I'm not gonna lie. So I agree with you. I think co-working spaces is invaluable. Unfortunately, I mean, like, WeWork is recently kind of fallen through the cracks. I mean, COVID came through, and they had a lot of issues when their IPO came out. They just tanked. But WeWork is more of a considered like a real estate company, to be honest.
Really?
But yeah, like kind of like McDonald's is not a fast food chain. It's a real
true.
estate company.
That's true.
So I mean, there's the benefits I see it. I'm when you were talking about how you're able to customize the
Yeah.
office, I was thinking like, we could do that on Zoom too. We just change the background.
True that, you
But
know.
still.
But there are some co-working spaces though that do offer that they have.
A customized experience.
No, but
Yeah.
not only that, but I'm talking now for podcasts. They
Yeah.
have podcast equipment or a podcast studio
We'll get to
within the
that.
co-working space.
We'll do that.
You know, it's just the opportunities are really limitless in that regard. And speaking of your office, I want to build up on this a little bit. Your office has a little bit of a different design compared to most. A lot of offices out there are very, cubicle based and all that, but yours looks like a
Open
how
concept.
how do you say it?
Open concept.
So
That's
do you
just
think
like,
is that the future of work right now, or
it's
like
always
is it
been
still
like that. That's
not all companies are transforming it to that way though?
It's just weird. I don't
You
like
know?
cubicles. It just
I
feels
don't like cubicles
like a
either.
prison.
Yeah. So, especially if they had the single ones, sometimes they would have the double where there's two of you in the cubicle.
Oh god.
But then there are ones, and I can speak from experience here because I used to work for a business process outsourcing company as I was a sales agent, and so we had our own cubicles. It felt kind of lonely, you know what I mean? But I really love going to your office because of how, like you said, how open it is. You call it an open concept.
Yeah, it's an open concept. It's kind of like when you break down the walls, when they do home renovations and makeovers. We're just gonna open up the space, make it.
I got you. No, I love that because
Yeah.
it just feels different walking there. I feel like I want to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not like, oh, let me go back to my cubicle and be sad about my life.
It does foster collaboration, but
You
going
know.
back to the productivity, it does also mean that people would come up to you from time to time, or other people would just kind of distract
you're
you
right.
while you're
Okay.
working. So it's
Okay.
not always great. I mean,
Yeah.
that's happened to me many times
Yeah.
where I would be working and someone or my boss, whoever it may be, just walks up to me and asks me for things
Yeah.
while I'm working. And that to me is a distraction. I like time blocking and I like focusing on certain things a bit at a time. It's not like I'm not great at multitasking. It's just I can't give my brain power to a million things
Mhm.
all at once.
And so I also think that companies are kind of like suggesting that their employees stay in the office longer because they provide everything there. Like in your office, I had a road setup. I had a beer in a cup,
God.
free coffee, free snacks, and all that stuff. Why would I need to go out of the office when all of it is provided?
I mean, there is a reason behind that, and
tell us.
A very smart person created this concept. It also came from the gaming industry, to be fair. Yeah,
I thought it came from the casino industry.
Where they wanted to build. It's actually entrapment too. When you when the companies make sure, because you feel like now your job is part of your identity, it's part of you, who you are. When everything is there. I mean, look at the office. Is the Google offices in New York? They have your place you can get massages. They have full chefs, sleeping quarters. They have a gym. They have everything.
You can live there. Man.
You can basically live there. You can shower there. It creates that notion that and by doing so, what you inadvertently do is you just give everything to this company because now this company is your life. And you tend to work a lot harder. And this is what they found, that employees that are, every happy employee does produce more, but they take it to an extent that now this is your life. You basically belong to us and there's nowhere else.
We own you, corporate slave. But yeah, I mean, that definitely is what tomorrow's workplace looks like, and we're here to inform. All right. Like it or not, the change will happen. Question is, how can you pivot? How can you adapt? Or how can you step away and create your own thing? That's something to think about. One thing that I want to leave everybody with here before we end the show is that change is constant.
Yes.
And if you're not moving with that change, you will be stuck. Okay. There's a lot of there's a lot of people, a lot of companies trying to get back to the way things were. Like I said earlier in the show, things will not go back to the way things were. They just won't. So better not to look back, look forward in optimism, look forward in motivation, inspiration, and find the change you need to make happen so that you can thrive in this crazy, ever changing business landscape that we are in. Boom.
Boom.
Thank you all for joining us over here at the set of TVT. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel because we do this consistently every single Saturday, 4 p.m. PT. No excuses whatsoever. We talk about modern business, trends in the business landscape that for all you beloved entrepreneurs. Love you all. Have a great weekend.
Peace.